In the heart of East Asia, a tense standoff captivates the world, a modern drama with roots stretching back through centuries of imperial ambition and revolutionary fervor. This is the story of two Chinas locked in a struggle over sovereignty, identity, and the very definition of their shared history. At the center of this modern geopolitical storm is Xi Jinping, the most powerful Chinese leader since Mao Zedong. For him and the Communist Party of China, the island of Taiwan is not a separate nation but a renegade province. The final unreclaimed piece of a puzzle that represents the culmination of a great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. To understand Xi's unwavering focus on Taiwan, we must look beyond the daily headlines of military drills and diplomatic warnings. We must journey back in time to the fall of empires and the birth of a republic to see how an island once on the periphery of the Chinese world became the ultimate symbol of its unfinished civil war, and a testament to its imperial past. The story begins not with communists and nationalists, but with emperors and dynasties. For much of its history, Taiwan, then known to the West as Formosa, was a remote island inhabited by Austronesian peoples, largely outside the direct control of the Chinese mainland. While Ming dynasty officials and traders had contact with the island, it was until the 17th century that it was truly drawn into the geopolitical orbit of the mainland. In 1683, the Qing dynasty, China's last imperial rulers, formally incorporated Taiwan into their empire, primarily as a strategic move to eliminate a rival Ming loyalist kingdom that had taken refuge there. For the next 2 centuries, Taiwan was administered as a frontier prefecture of Fujian province, a place of migration, conflict, and gradual Sinicization. However, the king's grasp on its vast empire was weakening. Humiliating defeats in the Opium Wars and internal rebellions exposed the dynasty's fragility in the face of industrializing Western powers and a rising Japan. The pivotal moment for Taiwan came in 1895. After losing the First Sino-Japanese War, a devastating blow to its regional dominance, the Qing government was forced to sign the Treaty of Shimonoseki. Among its humiliating terms was the ceding of Taiwan to the Empire of Japan in perpetuity. This act, the transfer of a territory and its people as a spoil of war, planted a deep seed of national shame and a desire for eventual reclamation that would resonate for generations to come. For the next 50 years, Taiwan was a Japanese colony, undergoing a separate path of development, modernization, and cultural influence distinct from the mainland, which was about to be engulfed in its own revolutionary chaos. While Taiwan was under Japanese rule, the mainland was experiencing a cataclysmic transformation. The Qing dynasty collapsed in 1912, giving way to the Republic of China ROC, founded by Sun Yat-sen and later led by the Nationalist Party, the Kuomintang KMT. But the new republic was weak, fragmented by warlords, and soon embroiled in a life-or-death struggle against 2 existential threats: the invading Japanese army and the burgeoning Chinese Communist Party CCP, led by Mao Zedong. For decades, these 2 Chinese factions, the KMT and the CCP, fought a bitter civil war for control of the country, a conflict that was only temporarily paused by their uneasy alliance against their common Japanese enemy during World War II. The end of the war in 1945 marked a dramatic turning point. Japan surrendered, and as part of the post-war settlement, control of Taiwan was handed over to the victorious Allied powers representative in the region, the Republic of China, led by KMT leader Chiang Kai-shek. For the first time in 50 years, Taiwan was once again governed from the mainland. However, this reunion was not a happy one. The KMT administration was widely seen as corrupt, brutal, and exploitative, treating the island as a conquered territory rather than a liberated one. Tensions exploded in the 228 incident of 1947, a bloody crackdown on a local uprising that resulted in the massacre of tens of thousands of Taiwanese people and created a deep-seated legacy of mistrust and animosity toward the KMT and mainland rule. This brutal episode was quickly overshadowed by the climax of the Chinese Civil War. By 1949, Mao's communist forces had decisively defeated the nationalists on the mainland. Facing total annihilation, Chiang Kai-shek, along with an estimated 2 million soldiers, officials, and civilian refugees, fled across the 100-mile-wide Taiwan Strait. He took with him the ROC government, its constitution, and the bulk of China's gold reserves. On the mainland, Mao Zedong stood at Tiananmen Gate and proclaimed the founding of a new state, the People's Republic of China (PRC). In that moment, the China that had existed for millennia was fractured. Two rival governments now claimed to be the sole legitimate ruler of all of China, one in Beijing and one in Taipei. The PRC controlled the vast mainland, while the ROC was confined to Taiwan and a few smaller islands. The front line of the Chinese Civil War had effectively frozen along the Taiwan Strait, creating the political and military standoff that persists to this day. The question of why this historical schism has become the defining issue for Xi Jinping lies in the very foundation of the modern Chinese state and the Communist Party's claim to legitimacy. For the CCP, its narrative of victory is one of ending China's century of humiliation, that period from the mid-19th to the mid-20th century marked by foreign invasion, unequal treaties, and internal decay. The party presents itself as the force that finally stood up, expelled foreign powers, and unified the nation under a strong, centralized government, restoring China's rightful place in the world. From this perspective, the existence of a separate, democratic government in Taiwan, which continues to use the name Republic of China, is the last, glaring loose end of that historical narrative. It is the final chapter of the Civil War that was never concluded, a living symbol of national division that undermines the party's claim of having fully unified the country and restored its territorial integrity. This historical imperative is deeply intertwined with Xi Jinping's personal ambition and political ideology. He has tied his legacy to the China Dream, a vision of achieving the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation by 2049, the 100th anniversary of the PRC's founding. In his speeches, Xi has explicitly stated that the Taiwan issue cannot be passed down from generation to generation, and that unification is an essential requirement for achieving this national rejuvenation. For him, resolving the Taiwan question is not just a policy preference, it is a historical mission. It is the ultimate proof that the era of weakness and division is over, and that the empire, in a new, modern form, is once again whole and unassailable. The motive is therefore a powerful cocktail of nationalist ideology, historical grievance, and the political necessity of fulfilling the party's foundational promise. Anything less than unification is seen as a failure to complete the revolution and a betrayal of the national narrative. The how of this long-running conflict has evolved dramatically over the decades, shifting from active military confrontation to a complex and increasingly dangerous blend of economic, diplomatic, and military pressure. In the early years after 1949, the conflict was hot. The PRC shelled the KMT-held offshore islands of Kinmen and Matsu, and both sides sent spies and saboteurs to harass the other. The United States, fearing the spread of communism in Asia, intervened by signing a mutual defense treaty with the ROC in Taipei and deploying its 7th Fleet to patrol the Taiwan Strait, effectively preventing a PRC invasion and guaranteeing the island's de facto independence. For decades, the world was forced to choose. Most Western nations recognized the ROC in Taipei as the legitimate government of China, granting it China's seat at the United Nations. This status quo began to crumble in the 1970s. Seeking to exploit the Sino-Soviet split and open a massive new market, U.S. President Richard Nixon made his historic visit to Beijing in 1972. This diplomatic earthquake led to a gradual shift in global recognition. In 1979, the United States formally switched its diplomatic recognition from Taipei to Beijing, acknowledging the PRC's One China principle, the position that there is but one sovereign state under the name of China. However, Washington did not explicitly endorse the PRC's claim over Taiwan. Instead, it adopted a policy of strategic ambiguity, maintaining unofficial relations with Taiwan and passing the Taiwan Relations Act, which commits the U.S. to providing the island with the means to defend itself. This delicate, and intentionally vague, balancing act has formed the bedrock of stability in the region for over 40 years. Today, under Xi Jinping, the PRC's approach to how it will achieve unification has become more assertive and multifaceted than ever before. Diplomatically, Beijing has systematically worked to isolate Taiwan on the world stage, pressuring the handful of remaining countries that still recognize the ROC to switch allegiance and blocking Taiwan's participation in international organizations like the World Health Organization. Economically, it has tried to use a carrot-and-stick approach, encouraging Taiwanese businesses to invest in the mainland to create economic interdependence, while simultaneously using trade restrictions as a tool of political punishment against Taiwanese administrations it deems uncooperative. Most ominously, the military dimension has intensified dramatically. The People's Liberation Army PLA has undergone a massive modernization, developing an arsenal of missiles, a blue water navy, and an air force specifically designed to overwhelm Taiwan's defenses and deter or defeat any potential U.S. intervention. The PLA now conducts near-daily incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, practicing encirclement maneuvers and simulating attacks. These actions are part of a gray zone strategy, designed to wear down Taiwan's military, exhaust its personnel, and psychologically intimidate its 23 million people, all while stopping just short of an act of war. This is how the imperial politics of the past have returned in the 21st century. Xi Jinping, viewing himself as a leader on par with the great unifiers of Chinese history, sees Taiwan through the lens of a dynastic mission. The methods have changed. Gunboats and imperial edicts have been replaced by ballistic missiles and economic coercion, but the fundamental goal remains the same: the consolidation of territory and the assertion of central authority over a land considered an inalienable part of the whole. For Beijing, this is the final step in closing the book on a century of humiliation and civil war. But for the people of Taiwan, who have forged their own distinct, democratic identity, it is an existential threat to their freedom and their future. The ghosts of the Qing Empire and the unfinished civil war continue to haunt the Taiwan Strait, and the world watches wondering if this return of empire politics will finally be resolved through peace or through a war that would reshape the globe.